have some basis for.
Okay.
Now, your 37-page report, did you calculate how much of that was actually quoting Mary Beth Wertz and how much was actually your findings or SACS's findings?
The beginning of the report has exactly what Mary Beth Ward said, and I did that as a convenient for.
So like, wouldn't it be like half the pages are quoting her? And
It's easily half of the
Okay.
first part of the report, and it's done so that the citizens know what she said, what we're investigating, and what we're reporting. I did not want anything to be a mystery of what we were focusing on.
I just asked you the number of pages quoting Mary Beth Wertz. That's all I asked. And you agreed, yeah, probably less than half.
Yes, sir.
Now, the number one item on your front pages was the scope of your services. The number one item was to investigate any wrongdoing or improprieties by Scott Svaab. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You went on tonight for 65 minutes plus, and only 5 minutes of it was about Scott Svaab's erroneous statements. The rest were about anybody who touched Scott Svaab or said anything unkind about Scott Svaab. Now, is there any reason why tonight you spent most of your time talking about everybody else but him?
Now, that is an incorrect statement on your part. I spent a considerable amount of time. I went over approximately 8 issues about Scott Svaab. I read 7 polygraphs.
Do you mind looking at me when you're talking? I look at you.
I went over 8 issues, and I described them, and I was talking to everybody here and everybody to my right, and I disagree with you on that fact
Okay.
that I spent 5 minutes only on Scott.
Now, you understand that there are whistleblower laws in this state. If any employee were to give you their name and sign an affidavit like they did for our investigations, if anybody were to retaliate against them, there are federal and state laws to protect them. You're aware of those laws, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm very much
Okay,
aware.
so you could have told those individuals, please, sign something like the other people did. Did you do that? Tell them about their whistleblower rights?
I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't want to get
The
into that.
answer is simple, yes or no. Did you tell them?
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
then
The
let's
answer is
move on.
not simple. I did identify the whistleblower laws. The responses from other employees were, yeah, you can believe all you want about whistleblower laws. I'm going to tell you how it's been here for the last X amount of years. And if you don't believe me, go back and ask certain people who have been intimidated. They did not believe the whistleblower laws would protect them, unfortunately.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the Medina case, I believe, earlier in your report, and that time violations are important, even if they're small. And I believe you mentioned the Medina case. Is that right? The auditor in the county of Medina?
I said there was a case that they are accusing a guy in Medina of improper use of time or money.
Well, let me help you. Let me help you with that. I have the actual Medina court charges and plea that came against the county auditor, Mr. Kovac, and he didn't just get charged. He actually pled guilty, and he's been sentenced already. And he was found guilty and pled guilty to using his office computer at the county, which was owned by the county, and using that computer while on duty. Were you familiar with that case at all?
I'm not real familiar, I just know that he was charged with some improper use of.
Would you agree that using a computer while on duty would be considered a crime? At least improper behavior.
The auditor of state said there
Why are you
wasn't.
interrupting?
I'm interrupting because you're trying to say something that has already been refuted by the auditor, sir.
You can't interrupt.
Well, I can interrupt him if I... Listen, he's trying to
You don't
make this
trust
a
your
prosecution.
investigator? If you don't
No.
trust your investigator, why is it?
I'm saying to you that you're bringing up an issue that the auditor of state investigated because you provided that information, and they said to you, there's nothing to it.
doesn't rise to the level of criminal behavior.
No, they said there was no basis for charging anybody
Eric, if we
anything.
keep some order here, I mean, I never interrupted Mr. Dimoff.
I'm just saying, you can, that is going the wrong
You would
way.
agree that that would be an improper behavior, would you not?
No, I mean, use of computer while working is a very touchy area, it's a very gray area. Basically, the amount of time that someone uses a computer for personal is taken into consideration, how often, how long, where they are, could it lead up to an accusation of that? Yes, it could.
Okay, did you receive our supplemental report to council from October of 2014 documenting on-duty time by Scott Svab, 125 pages of personal work for Canal Fulton or his bee business while he was checked in on duty in the city of Macedonia? Did you review those?
I was made aware of it.
You didn't review them?
I reviewed some of it.
And who gave them to you?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Is there any reason why in your 37 pages or 12 of your writing, you didn't mention those?
The use of the computer had been reviewed by the auditor. It was my understanding that the auditor cleared him of that and said there wasn't any cause there. So based on that, I did not pursue that.
Okay. Now, there were a lot of things in your report that the auditor had already touched on. A lot of things. And you chose to still talk about them and report on them and investigate them. Your goal, as I understood it, was not just to investigate criminal behavior, like the auditor's report said. Your goal was to any improper behavior that would justify a civil termination of employment by a municipal government. Now, why did you not comment on these emails?
As I stated in the beginning, we were provided so many accusations, numerous accusations. And I stated again at the beginning, Mr. Deemer, we went $8,000 over in our investigation and absorbed it. And I stated,
And that's fair.
I stated again, we did not have the ability, money, or time to investigate everything. And I stood here and I will say it again to everybody, we absolutely, the truth is, I just didn't have the ability, time, and money to look at every single thing. We had to pick what we considered the major accusations, which I was presented. Now, if council and Mr. Deemer would want to appropriate another $25,000 to my team, I will come back with answers to those that I cannot answer because we didn't have the money or time to investigate. I personally don't think it's necessary. I think you have plenty to debate, plenty to digest, but I will stand here and tell you, absolutely, we did not look at every single thing that happened, but we looked at the major accusations that we were presented. As an offshoot to that, people started telling us about other major issues. We investigated those. They started telling us about additional investigations
Mr.
and
Dimoff, do you
stuff,
mind
and we
answering?
stopped.
Why do you just want to keep going on? Talk with me. I'm asking some questions. The county of Medina thought it was important enough to indict a county fiscal officer, their finance director, for using the computer on duty. You say you were given these 3/4 of an inch or an inch thick of 125 pages of work being done on duty. I just did 2013. And I have this email from January 28th of 13, back and forth between him and officials at Canal Fulton. I have his time card there, showing his time he checked in, his time he checked out, the total number of hours he put in for pay, and then I have the times on these timesheets showing he was here, he was on duty, and on his computer owned by the city. You didn't think that was important enough to investigate for any improper behavior?
If we looked at Scott Saab for that, I would need to look at every employee.
But you were hired for one person, Scott Svab.
I'm trying to say, why are we prejudiciously picking on Scott or anybody else?
Because he was charged by the mayor.
Mr. Deemer,
and terminated.
as law director, I would ask you to check every email of every employee in Macedonia, and you will have no employees left.
See, now
If it's based on email use to personal, because you have to deal with the fact, and I'll bet you 10 to 1, you personally have sent personal emails out during the day. And I'm not going to condemn you or anybody else for sending emails. If you feel that that was an obsession or an overuse of emails, and the council feels that way, then they can make that determination. But I'm here to tell you, every single employee in this city sends personal emails. Where am I, as an investigator, to draw the line?
I see.
I draw the line on the major accusations, and I come back with the truth. If you want to major in minor, you have chosen the right guy.
So you think 125 pages of personal emails on duty that the county of Medina thought was serious enough, but in your mind, because everybody does it, it's okay. I bet you everybody in Medina County does it too, right?
Hey, I don't know to what extent Scott did it to
Well, I wanted
exactly.
to go through these with you and you keep interrupting me. I started with one, I showed you the day and the time, but you never even looked at these, did you?
I looked at him, I did not consider him sending personal emails as a major issue for this city when I'm sitting on other leadership, misappropriating funds. I've got a law director asking a person to forgive a $130,000 personal loan.
That's it, just keep repeating what your accusations are.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
get to all of them.
yeah.
And I see now why you don't want to go under oath, because what you're saying would get you in a whole lot of trouble. Sure. Now,
This
Mr.
is a
Deemer,
council
Mr.
meeting,
Deemer,
it's not a
Mr.
court.
We'll move on
Dimoff,
to the
excuse
next
me.
subject.
Could we
Nancy.
read the disclaimer? You've never read this disclaimer. You keep making these accusations,
please.
and you really need to say this disclaimer.
Go on, Mr. Deemer.
That this,
I
the
am
investigations
clear.
led to the discovery of this unverified information. It's
Some of it-
unverified.
some
Stop
of it
talking
is
about it, just
unverified.
answer the question so we can all get home.
Jan, some of it is unverified, some of it is verified.
You
Sorry
wrote on here
if
unverified and underlined. How do I know then what's what? You didn't say that.
I clarified.
I'm sorry,
in my-
Mr.
I
Deemer, but-
clarified tonight.
Move on.
Mr. Deemer, please go on.
I will clarify again, some of it is unverified, some of it is verified. I clarified tonight what was verified. I am sorry for the
You
misunderstanding.
have dealt with and now are reflecting the experience with not only my conflicts with Scott, Mike's conflicts with Scott's, the Gitano's conflicts with Scott's, Finance Department employees' conflicts with Scott, the mayor's conflicts with Scott. Everybody's had conflicts with Scott, the engineer, the planner, and yet you're saying it's all us, not him. So, and you're reflecting what he does, attack everybody else. Let me talk about the first finding you had where you talked about falsification of public records. This is the ODNR report. You glossed over that rather quickly, saying it was no big deal, nobody stole any money. You stated in your findings, what Scott said. Mr. Spab stated in his interview that backdating invoices is common practice. You accepted that. Did you go to any other finance directors and ask them if that's common practice? Because I've been in 13 communities, I've never known one that thought that was common practice. Did you ask anybody? That's easy answer, yes or no?
Yes,
Okay, how many?
several.
Okay, they go on record or they don't want to show their names either?
Their
Might be nice.
response is, communities do those things to get things done, but I'll never admit to it.
I see. Okay. And there must be a reason why they won't admit to it, would you say?
I would agree.
Okay, you had indicated further under the first allegation that you pretty much were just quoting what Scott said. And Scott, in his report, which you reviewed, he wrote an email to council on September 17th in response to our first charges against him. And in that, he said, I called ODNR Aquatics Grant Administrator Sean Landon and asked if the finance director from Canal Fulton should send him the funds back to purchase the leftover equipment from Macedonia. Mr. Landon said that would be fine to purchase the excess equipment, but to make sure the invoice date is before the closing of the grant date of July 1. That's Scott's words. You looked at that, I'm sure, right? And then you also looked at our report from the interview with Mr. Sean Landon, did you not?
Yes.
You didn't mention that in the report. Sean Landon, first of all, he is not the grants administrator. You found that out, I'm sure. He didn't even start at ODNR when Scott allegedly made those calls. Mr. Landon further said he can't ever recall talking with Scott. And then he said He's 100% sure that he never discussed invoicing between the city of Macedonia and Canal Fulton. There's no way ever he would have ever had that conversation. He checked with his supervisor, and he confirmed that he never had any such conversation with Scott. No way anyone at ODNR would make such a statement to predate or postdate any kind of invoicing. Were you aware of that in your interviews with Sean Landon or anybody else there?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't find lying to counsel in his letter to counsel and his email, writing to his employers and saying on September 17, 2014, something that's a direct lie? That's not problematic for you? Maybe not criminal, but isn't it improper behavior of an employee?
I have no victim, and ODNR said that they do not want to pursue this issue. The kids got their fishing poles, and no money was personally taken. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I will leave that up to you. I'll leave it up to council to make that determination. For the record, I did not make a determination on that because ODNR did not want to be involved. I saw no reason to either way. There were other things to review that I was presented with.
Well, Mr. Dimoff,
That's up to council.
you don't think the victim is counsel in the administration when your key finance guy misrepresents to you the facts of somebody he talked to that gave him authority to do what he did? That wouldn't bother you as a CEO or the president or the mayor of a community when an employee lies?
I'm asked to find
That's the
out
victim.
if there was any.
Can I respond to that, Mr. Dean?
No, you can't.
Okay.
But here's the bottom line. I will let council decide the value of that or the unvalue of it because I simply did not go there because ODNR did not want to pursue anything on it. And simply, I had nothing to go on as far as them complaining that Scott, if he did or didn't do it, I'll let council make that determination if it's proper or improper.
Okay, so in that email that you saw of ours from September 22nd, 2014, there were approximately 6 lies in what Scott told council and the administration about backdating that invoice. 6 lies. Can you dispute that?
I have no comment on that because I did not look at that. I excluded that. It's in my report. I excluded it for known reasons.
Fine. Now let's talk about the auditor's report that you think, that you feel is cooperative of the fact that there was nothing done that was improper. Not criminal, improper. Now, did you look at that report in detail? Or did someone summarize it for you?
I think I got it summarized to me.
By Scott?
No.
By Sylvia?
Maybe by Sylvia or Rita.
Okay.
I didn't.
No.
So now,
I
you
could tell
didn't
you
mention
that.
I'm
any,
not part of it.
you didn't mention anywhere in your report the pertinent parts. All you did was say at the end, it is an issue for Macedonia officials to take up with Scott Staub. You remember that very last statement?
Yes.
And that it doesn't come to the level of criminal behavior. You remember that statement because you quoted it.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't mean that it wasn't improper, does it? If something's not criminal, you still could be violating your oath of office, could you not?
Once again, that's for council to determine.
Okay, well, Eric Postel, the ODNR Aquatics Grant Supervisor, who was actually there, said in his auditor's report, this isn't my investigation, this is the auditor's investigation. He would never tell someone to change the dates on their paperwork to be in compliance with the grant. You didn't quote that. That's the state auditor's office saying that, right? The writer of this report reviewed the investigation of Macedonia's law department and confirmed that Svab lied to them in regards to obtaining permission from ODNR to sell equipment from Macedonia to Canal Fulton.
That's
The
his
employee
report.
Svab referred to from ODNR, Sean Landon, never spoke with Svab in his
That's
life.
his report.
Now, do you remember reading that in the auditor's report? Or didn't you think that was important either?
I told you, ODNR, once again, I did not review that. I did not consider it in the accusations because ODNR didn't want to do anything about it. Once again, that will be up to council to
Is it
determine.
because your goal was to exonerate Scott Svab?
My goal was to get the truth.
Well, then why didn't you report these truths from a state agency record? Why didn't you report those?
For the last time, ODNR did not want to be involved in it. They were on,
It didn't revolve. I got the report.
yeah, you got their report, and they said no money was stolen, the kids got their fishing poles, and moved on.
No, not move on. Quote, the investigator Rudy for the auditor's office said, quote, "Svab may be guilty of being unethical. And in discussion with representatives of the law department and the state, the writer was told the ethics commission was forwarded a copy of this and also 8 other points from the auditor of state." So they deferred. Isn't that right? He said it may be unethical. You didn't report that in your report.
I took no stance on the ODNR.
Well, why wouldn't you take a stance from a state agency? You don't believe me, you don't believe Mary Beth Wertz, who I don't know, ever didn't know, and I didn't confer with anyone for her hire. So why would you not quote an independent, neutral agency if you're neutral? Why wouldn't you?
Because, once again, ODNR did not want to pursue it.
They didn't want to pursue criminal. You weren't hired to just pursue criminal. You were hired any improper behavior.
Mr. Deemer,
Yes,
it's up to council to take that and they can,
I see.
in the direction they want.
So you've done your job for the 3 councilmen and for Scott, and now you're going to leave it up to them.
No, I made a statement to ODNR. We did not pursue it because of those certain facts. That was our decision. If council doesn't approve it or like it, they have the right to make a counter decision. All I'm doing is investigating to the best of our ability, facts and the cases. We did as much as we could. We did not do it all. There are things that we did not pursue. I will continue to say it on the record. ODNR is one of the areas we did not pursue for reasons stated. There are other things that we did not pursue for reasons stated, and there were additional things discovered that we did not pursue.
All right, come on, you usually
That's
got
it.
my time. You're just repeating what
Well-
you said before. We heard all that before.
Well, then-
But why, you aren't answering me as to why you didn't put it in the report. You were hired to be neutral. Your professional reputation.
I did put it in the report. I put in there that ODNR did not want to be involved in it, that was happy with the fishing poles and the money wasn't taken.
You're repeating yourself. Why didn't you put in the things that I quoted from the report? If you want to be neutral and fair.
Because we did not examine that accusation and make a determination on it based on that.
But that was the accusation against him, that what he did in backdating invoices was improper.
Okay,
Now, that's what you were supposed to look into. Another state agency thought it was improper.
go ahead.
You
Move
didn't
on.
think it was worthy of putting in there.
Move to your next question, please.
Okay. Why wasn't the subject of this retroactive invoicing put into the polygraph questions? By the way, did you use the computer voice box or did you use an actual polygraph?
That's a good question. I will get you an answer on that because I don't know. I leave that out to the professional polygraph operators. I completely stay out of the polygraph. I don't suggest questions. I don't suggest techniques.
So they may have
Questions.
just used the computer voice box then.
I don't know, but I doubt it, but I don't know.
And you know, some members of this council have even questioned the validity of the voice box stress test and the truthfulness.
We could debate all day about polygraphs.
Okay, do they work for you, this polygraph company? Are they your employees or are they an outside subcontractor?
I had a outside agency utilized for that. I wanted nothing connected to me. I did not want to use anything that was local, that was connected to anybody. I wanted a purely objective polygraph process, and that's what we did.
And what agency was that, or what company was that?
I don't have the name. I can get it for you in a second. I think I have it in my phone, or I can get back to you on that.
Okay. I mean, you quoted the polygraph results quite
Well,
regularly tonight.
polygraph
You
can-
think you'd remember who the company was?
Polygraph can, you can debate polygraph for a long time. A lot of people have found it to be.
But it changed your mind on Scott's Bob. You immediately said, now I know he's not guilty because he passed those questions you asked.
It was a combination of the polygraph and interviews with former and current employees and seeing the pattern that was used, and for lack of a better description, I'll call it improper intimidation type stuff, and the actions that I'm getting reported from employees and previous employees, you know, does
None
tell me
none of which you can name, is that right?
That is correct. HNS Polygraph Services.
HNS?
Yes, sir.
Are they out of Akron or?
Youngstown.
Youngstown. And you know which technician actually did it?
Yeah, I can forward you that.
Okay. How many employees in your company, Mr. Dimoff?
Between part-time, full-time, variety, there would be approximately 20-some employees. Sometimes it fluctuates a little higher. We're in the process of hiring military people from overseas for some additional security.
Mr. Dimoff, in the section beginning on page 12, most of the next page you're just quoting Ms. Wertz, but it's the conflict in relative to the insurance company, the step note. On page 13, your investigative findings, and you said tonight there was confusion as to whether or not the step-no was hired properly or whether they should have been rebid or not, and then you quoted Scott's July 2nd response to everyone. Is that pretty much it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you had indicated that Scott said there was confusion on whether 3 bids were needed to be taken on all services provided. Scott attempted to get bids from Travelers Insurance and others, and any official formal bids from taking place from these 2 additional insurance people. And then you went on to say that Scott told mayor and council, and you're quoting him as though this is the truth, told Joe Deemer and council that the liability insurance records of titles for the police vehicles and city vehicles that were overestimated and for which we were paying excess premiums because we didn't have those vehicles anymore, were actually in the service department. Now, you recall there was thousands of dollars of premiums that we were paying for motor vehicles that were not actually in our fleet anymore, correct?
Correct.
Scott told you, and obviously told all of us, that that's the service department's fault. And you quoted that as though it's true. Do you believe that to be true? 30 vehicles excess premiums being paid for.
Once again, in my report, I am to report the facts. Okay?
That's what I want to talk about.
And
Did you know
these
there
are
was
the
30
facts.
vehicles involved?
I knew there was numerous vehicles. I
And
don't
did you
know.
investigate to see whether or not the service department is in fact responsible for titles of vehicles that we insure in this community and every community?
I put it in the report once again because that's the information I was able to
But
obtain.
you understand my job is to test your.
Yeah,
so-
I understand that, and that's fine, I respect that. But I'm saying, I gather the information for the councils. They take this information and they will have to digest it, just like the ODNR, this, and others, and determine whether that is a feasible
I got you.
reason for it. And I'm presenting the facts very objectively, and
But that's what I want to test, your objectivity here. If you're presenting the facts as they are, did you check the charter to see if Scott told you the truth? Or did you check the Ohio Revised Code to see if Scott was telling you the truth? Or did you check with any other finance directors to see if Scott was telling you the truth? That a service department's responsible for keeping the property lists that we insure.
I put it in there for council to know what our decision was based on, for them then to digest and determine whether that is proper or improper. The other thing is, with the service department, I wasn't able to get any conversation with Mr. Digatano.
Well, why didn't you put it in there, then it was in our report, and it was in Mary Beth Wertz's report, I assume, that there were 30 vehicles. In fact, we got a rebate on those premiums after I threatened a lawsuit But we couldn't get 1 year because the statute of limitations had already expired, and we couldn't get that money back, so the city lost it. You were familiar with that episode?
Yeah, and that knowledge was already possessed
Oh, I see.
by the council.
But you-
This was additional information for them to consider. Once again, my job is not to manipulate the facts, it's to present the facts. You know, and I can't take facts and manipulate them to pro or con, but I can report the facts, put them in the report. I'm not hiding anything Attorney Word said. I put her stuff right next to the same thing of our facts. I cut and paste it right there so there would be no discussion or thought that I'm trying to hide anything.
Well, you cut and pasted section, and why, I don't know why you don't want to talk to me. They didn't ask the question.
I'm talking to
Article-
everybody, including you.
On Article number 6 of the charter, and just quoting facts here, it says the Department of Finance, section 6.03, duties in general, subparagraph E, finance director shall perform such other duties assigned by council or as required of the fiscal offices of municipalities pursuant to the statutes of the state of Ohio. You didn't report that fact. You either cut it out or overlooked it, right?
I think they already have that.
Well, the audit accounts and the finance director's obligations under the Ohio Revised Code shall prescribe the form of all accounts and reports to be rendered for the department and the form of method of keeping accounts by all other departments, and shall keep track under 731.11 of all property owned by the city. All property owned by the city under the finance department. Now, he told you service department was supposed to do it. Why wouldn't you check that fact out and find that in fact, that's not the law? The law requires him to keep track of all those vehicles.
They keep track of all the time.
When the paperwork was not at his location and was at another location, and the fact that council already had that information that you just read here. My job as an investigator is not to tell people everything they already know.
No, they asked you to confirm whether or not the findings the administration made were true or not. And you chose to not even support any of the allegations with what the facts are.
Hey, Joe, excuse me a minute, Joe, or Mr. Deemer, I should say, I'm sorry. Mr. Deemer, I did research that, and all,
Well, then you can
in
testify later, but-
almost all the cities, it is kept in the service department. It's their responsibility to keep track of all the vehicles, what we own and what we don't own, and then they give
All this is
it,
helping your witness
they have to
out.
update
Can I
it.
just ask
Sherry
questions?
Kuzma confirmed that with me, and then you update all of that.
I'll question you later, but let
Okay,
me
so,
finish with your witness so we can get out of here.
well, I'm telling you the facts,
We're
that it
gonna
is
talk
kept
a
in the
lot-
service
we're gonna talk a
department.
lot more. So, did you interview any of the prior finance directors in the city of Macedonia, the last 2 or 3, about these issues?
No.
Didn't you think that would be important that his immediate predecessors and how they handled just this one issue of the list of property in the inventory would be important for you to know? That's not important?
Mr. Deemer, I appreciate your question. And the only thing I can tell you is, I spent $8,000 over.
They didn't give you enough money.
They didn't give me
And you
enough
should
money.
charge them more.
And they didn't give me enough time, and I'm not asking for more money. What I'm saying is, I did an investigation on a lot of the accusations. We found out a lot. We provided a lot.
Okay, but I don't want to go into all that other
of
stuff. Let's
information.
stick to this issue. I know you want
It
to
falls-
keep repeating.
No,
things.
it falls underneath there.
It doesn't.
We found,
I asked you if you
we
talked to prior
provided,
finance
we provided additional information for the council to consider along with the previous information
About everybody except the
that was obtained.
man you were supposed to be investigating.
We provided plenty about
Well, then why
Scott.
didn't you talk to prior finance directors? You would have found out that the fleet of vehicles has always been kept in the finance department prior to Mr. Spock. You didn't know that because you didn't ask anybody, right?
No, we didn't talk to anybody
Okay,
previously.
and do you know that the reason for that is they use the inventory of equipment and vehicles and property to get insurance specifications out, so we can get lawful quotes on our insurance for property and vehicles. And this time, we didn't get it, because Scott gave them 30 more vehicles than we actually owned. Do you find that at all to be an improper action on an employee who lost taxpayer dollars?
What, I can appreciate your question. What I find improper is, I submitted a report with information of facts and information of additional stuff that should be looked at. I think this report should be taken by yourself and counsel, and you should make a list of those additional questions or investigations you want that are a result of my investigation that cause you to want to know more, and I would be more than happy to pursue those additional facts of information if that's what you want. But if you're going to ask me questions all night on stuff that
Well,
you
you talked for 65 minutes, I've only had a half an hour.
I understand, Mr. Deaver.
So let me just get to
but
my points.
Let's talk about what we reported, because I will continuously, in respect to you.
We will
I
stipulate,
will
you didn't
tell
get enough
you-
money, and you had plenty of waivers in here where you say none of this has been tested or verified. We understand that, so we'll stipulate to that, you don't need to repeat that. But let me go to the next area, the tree fund.
Thank you.
You spoke at length about the tree fund, and you said Scott told you that the monies were erroneously placed by the building department in the bottom drawer. Again, somebody else's fault, not Scott's. And you pretty much quoted that as being gospel, right?
I had a young lady that is the one that went and found it, and she's the one that found it in the bottom drawer.
Okay.
And I don't know how you and council interpret that, but here you're looking for a tree fund. Yeah, it's in the wrong fund. Yep, it's in the wrong drawer, in the wrong department. And are we gonna split hairs on this thing?
Well, no,
It's
let's
in
not
the-
split hairs. Let's
It's in
talk
the
about
wrong
the facts.
department, in the wrong drawer, in the wrong area.
Yeah.
And after you discover the fund, you find out that there's no money misappropriated or no money that was stolen, let's say, okay? And that money in that tree fund is taken care of. Now, if council is not happy with what we found out,
We will stipulate to all that too.
then they'll do
so
something.
Let me
They
have my
can make their decision.
Okay, now, had you investigated further and asked questions, I know you didn't have the time or the money to do so, but the same revised code sections under 73312, which our charter adopt, require the finance director to prescribe the form of accounts and reports to be rendered from every department and the method of keeping accounts by all other departments. That's state law. Another 73311. The finance director is responsible for all monies received and expended. That's the same section as all property. So when you say somebody misplaced it, isn't that the finance director's responsibility? Isn't that the fact that the revised code puts that burden on him? Not on the building commissioner?
Let me respond to that.
No,
You're twisting,
you cannot.
you're twisting the facts
Well,
again.
yes,
Scott.
look who's twisting the
Yeah,
facts.
you're twisting them again.
Now, you want to take over for your investigator, huh?
No, you want the truth or you want to play
Yeah.
legal lawyer?
Yes, well, indeed, yeah, Mr. Deemer has been twisting and turning.
All right,
I'll move on to the next one.
thank you.
We need to move on.
Please, allowed to ask questions. How many more you got there, Joe?
About 4 or 5. I won't use 65 minutes, I promise you that.
Well, I just wanted Mr. Ladd to be able, and the mayor to be able to make comments if they needed to.
The time clock issue that you reported about, you indicated that it was a pilot test program. Where did you get that information?
From Scott.
That's page 15. So Scott told you it was a pilot test program.
It was a test program for 1 out of 3 locations.
And you didn't look at any legislation or other documentation or quotations that would include those terms, pilot test program, could you? You wouldn't find anything there.
Once again, we keep repeating this, and I keep saying the same thing. My job was to report the facts that we found, the opinions we found, the statements we found, report it in a report. This report is for the digestion of the council. They can weigh the facts any way they want, and that will be their determination.
Okay.
I put in here what we found.
Okay, that's all you have to
That's
say,
it.
that's all. Now, Scott told you, and you repeated in your report, that it's under $25,000, so no bid was required. You repeated that from Scott, didn't you?
No, I wasn't sure on that, and I put in there was confusion on this bid process, and I still, to this day, it's one of those areas I don't know.
The only confusion I suggest, Mr. Dimoff, is what people have caused you to have, is confusion. Did you look at ordinance number 9-2013?
No.
A lawfully adopted ordinance by the city council on April 4th, 2013, certified copies of it clearly say the finance director is directed to advertise for bids for the purchase. What about that is confusing?
I was told that there is a limit under bids by several people that said, is there not a bid limit? And I said, I don't know, and I kept hearing this 25,000, and that's why I put it in the report
But your
for clarity.
your professional reputation is at stake. You want to be right on these things. Wouldn't you say, well, where's the legislation? Let me look at that, Scott. You're telling me that under 25 you don't need to bid. This is a law adopted by this council, and it directed him to advertise for bids.
Okay.
You could have easily said to him, 25,000 don't matter. This council directed you to advertise for bids. It's a law. You didn't do that, did you?
No, in my report.
He received 3 bids, by the way. He did receive 3, so just.
Advertise for bids. I'll cross-examine you next.
Well, you know, let's,
Mr. Deemer.
Then in this ordinance, this same law goes on in section 1 to say, after the receipt of such bids, the same shall be analyzed by the Department of Finance and submitted to council for final award of a contract to the lowest and best bidder. And do you know that didn't happen? He just brought them in the clocks, and you say it was a test program.
My understanding, it was a test program.
So it's likely you got this information there.
It's not
I
in
did,
this,
that's
it
the
isn't.
council determined.
Now, you know, and you probably found, that through the efforts of the law department, we went and got back all the money, even the 1/3 he calls now a test program, because it was a lawfully signed contract by him to bring in those things, and the company knew it, admitted it, and paid us back 100%. The check for $3,170 was returned to the taxpayers here. Did you find that out in your investigation? That's a fact.
Was not told that.
Okay. You would think that a company thought they had a lawful right and they were doing a lawful test program, they wouldn't just give you back $3,000, would they?
I'm glad to hear you got the money back.
Mr. Deemer, can
I'd
I?
like you to have the opportunity to hear the sides of the story.
Yeah, but
You'll think you're-
Mr. Deemer, Mr. Dimoff contacted the mayor to come in here and be
Mayor, can I have a point of
interview.
order here? I'm in
And
the
he
middle
was
of my-
denied.
I didn't interrupt you guys.
He was denied though, so just so let's get it straight.
We could have interrupted several times and we gave
Well,
him the
I'm
courtesy to
making
talk.
sure that the facts
So
are told here.
courtesy should be kept here for us to say something. Joe has received all the rebuttals.
Well, also, Mr. Dimoff didn't have the privilege of getting records from the city because you wouldn't allow him in here.
He
So
had a
let's
right to all the
make that
records. You had
straight
them all.
statement.
Everybody, yeah,
Well-
everybody has
All right,
the
let
right to
me move
record.
on if I may.
Yeah,
Mayor.
not when it comes from your administration, they don't.
No.
I'm still waiting for my records.
Yeah, well, how about 103 records requests in 2 months?
Let's prove it.
Can I ask one question about this,
No,
Ms.?
please, let me go.
No, this is within the same question. It says in here as part of a pilot test program. Was that within the language of the legislation, that it was a pilot test program? No, it was not. Second of all, on July 2nd, Scotts Bob emailed a response to all of Council Mayor and Joe Deemer that the time clocks were returned and the mayor and council approved a prorated refund. Were all clocks returned?
We didn't get.
No.
Thank you. We got a call saying there was still one floating around that we found and
Well,
returned.
it's okay, we still got our money for him
Yeah,
anyway.
well,
They're still here.
I'm glad you guys communicate with Nick Monar and Jan Tully over there, because this, you know.
Just like the three of you do every week.
No, that's what
Every
you
day.
think, Jan.
Okay, can the administration be allowed to proceed, please? Near the end of your report, and that means I'm getting near the end of my questions, Mr. Dimoff. I'm sure you're happy to hear. You had mentioned Betsy McCafferty as somebody that wasn't talked to or wasn't really confided in, and confided in you in a number of things, and you quote her and say, towards the end of this investigation, it was discovered that several employees had confided to HR Director Betsy McCafferty about various unfair management practices. The employees stated Betsy listened, but they did not get the feeling that she was capable of doing anything about these. You used the word widespread concerns, but again, you can't give us any names of those employees, can you? Or you won't?
Well, I can't because they request confidentiality.
And do they have a right of confidentiality, you think?
Absolutely.
And under what theory do they have a confidential informant status here?
Whistleblowing.
I mean, you have a police background, right? You know you have to qualify a confidential informant. Do you know of any authority for them to have confidentiality? And yet you report them and use their words to malign people about conflicts, unethical, criminal behavior, but you won't say the names of the people who attribute that behavior?
As the report reflects, there are some people that did give their names, that we did have interviews, and obviously there were ones that didn't. I respect those that didn't, and I will continue to respect.
Page 26, you said Betsy had talked about many employees and blah, blah, blah. And then on page 34, you say, current employees reported that Mr. Digatano is very vindictive, bad temper, a power control freak, and a compulsive liar. You won't give us the names of those employees, even though such vile statements are written down on your report, will you?
No.
You have such disrespect for another human being that you will not, you repeat words that you don't know, you just heard from somebody.
Once again, in essence to your question, I can appreciate your question, but you're asking me about the credibility of Mr. Digatano when
No, I'm asking you about things Betsy told you.
you're asking about the credibility of Mr. Digatano when we have a tape recording that he's instructing his people on how to use city equipment and work on their cars in the city building. And you want me to respect the fact that
I
these
know.
confidential informants
Mr.
were lying about
Dimoff,
his credibility and integrity?
Just
I
like
think
Scott and
that they-
Sylvia, you turn around and you attack other people. The question was, did Betsy McCafferty give you names of people?
My job's not to attack Mr. Deemer. My job is to report what I'm told, facts, and reveal things, and for council to digest this report along with other information they have and make their determination. It is not up to me at all,
I stipulated all of that.
and
Now-
as you are trying to get me to accuse or whatever with these
Just
confidential
pass up
people.
names like we all did. Everybody else in these investigations gave names, dates, places, facts. All we have is somebody said it, and I can't say who.
There's a balance there. We have previous employees identified, previous management.
Well, if they're
We
previous
have-
employees, who cares? They
we have-
can't be hurt.
Some of the reasons they left was because of exactly what I've exposed.
But you can't give their names even though they're not here anymore. You also talk about several employees brought to the attention of the former HR director, Betsy McCafferty, who became upset because Mr. Digatano promised Mike Lewis he'd be hired next, and it never happened. 2 other persons were hired for this promised position about 1 month ago. You attribute all of this to Betsy McCafferty. I received from her statement, dated May 18th. I do not recall, this is her words, being asked by the investigator about recent service department hiring. That subject was related to me about another employee, and it was hearsay, and I take offense that they were included in the report. I take offense that 2 recent service department employees were even mentioned. They were good hires, and I support Digatano's decision. A member of the union was even at the meeting for the interviews, and it was in his discretion as service director. I was asked by the investigator regarding widespread employee intimidation, as you will keep suggesting here tonight. She says, quote, "In my 2 years, there were only a few employees who had employment issues, none of them related to intimidation. I only recall one grievance. It's not widespread. The investigator said many employees came forward and said they had talked to me about issues. Only a couple employees came to mind that were upset because they did not get promoted or because their family members did not get hired. The investigator's report stated the employees said I was incapable to do anything about their issues. Just because someone feels entitled to a job does not mean the hiring decision was wrong. As to Scott's proficiency, the investigator also mischaracterized. I was not speaking regarding other functions of his position or the issues that were alleged as part of the original investigation. I was only talking about negotiations and employee benefits that I worked with him on." Now, that's what she said she actually said. Why would you mischaracterize her statements?
Mr. Deemer, is it,
Wording
is
is
it,
that what you're saying?
Mr. Deemer, is it true that Betsy McCafferty was hired by Mr. Tom Hanslick? They knew each other from another job?
No, it's not true.
No,
that's
Betsy,
your-
Betsy
you guys-
McCafferty.
That's the way you do it.
No,
You attack.
I'm just asking.
Just attack.
Well, that's what you're doing, so I'm just asking a statement, because I happen to find that out, so.
Is Betsy McCafferty under charges
No,
here?
no,
So
but
why are
you just,
even bringing that
you
up?
just stated something that she has put in the report. So I'm asking you,
Why
A
don't we
simple
have
question.
Mr.
No.
Dimoff first answer his question, and then
And she
Mr.
wrote
Deemer
that,
to
she wrote
answer
that
hers.
to Diane Augustine, not to me.
okay, yeah, well, okay,
What
but,
was the date, Joe?
yeah,
May 18th.
14?
May 18th,
Of what year?
this year.
So that's my question.
Yeah,
What's the date?
after she read the report.
I gather we're not having an answer.
But you want an answer?
Well, the question was
I
very
did, I
simple.
thought you said there was, I thought you said no answer.
A
No.
2-second answer, not,
Betsy is a very nice lady. I'm sorry that she had to go to that extent.
She doesn't work here anymore, you know that,
Yeah, but she's a human being.
as we all are.
And here's what I'll say about that.
Can you talk to us so we can hear
I'm
you?
gonna look at it.
I can't hear you.
I feel sorry for Betsy because,
Now we're gonna attack her?
no, not at all. She's a fine lady, but I feel sorry because when I first talked to her, it was very hard for her to talk about it. I had to call her back several times, and she, realistically, I probably shouldn't even reveal her name. She was very hesitant to discuss.
Well, let me
the issue.
correct you there, because she volunteered this email, she wasn't asked to do it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
understand
after
that
she read the
because,
report.
because I put her name in the report, and I think that was a mistake I made. I exposed her and her feelings, and I don't blame her for talking about a lot of her work. It was pleasant and all that. But she does admit in the email that employees came to her and complained. So I guess you can interpret it any way you want, but my fact was simply that as an HR director, people did come to her and they did complain about certain things.
So why didn't you ask her how many?
You know, and
She
my
said two-
report
She
says.
said 2 people in 2 years.
Yeah.
Why didn't you ask that? That's not widespread when you got 100 employees.
All I said was, in the report, it's there that people had come to her and complained about certain things. And she did in fact tell me certain things, but I am not gonna sit here without her here, and I'm not gonna involve her. Her statement is very minor to the big scope of this investigation, and I'll respect her email
But you,
and not worry.
but you quoted quite frequently the culture, you used the term tonight. There's a culture here. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And you quoted her on 3 different sections as being one of the supporting persons on this culture problem. And yet, she volunteers to correct your investigation by telling us what you're quoting is incorrect and what you're saying was not what she said.
Well, if we have a disagreement on that,
A disagreement on what she said.
I stand by my
Okay.
interpretation of what she said, and she's entitled to have her change her mind, or she's entitled to say that that's not what she meant,
Okay.
and that's fine. I respect that.
Next area you talk about under the building commissioner, Mike Ladd, you talk about in your report on page 33, there's no evidence that has been provided to show proof that the bid process by the city of Macedonia has not been enforced or included towards the contracts over the last 10, 15 years. The question remains whether Mike Ladd has the requisite state of Ohio certifications to sign off on both residential and commercial permits. Ladd has the residential, but he does not have commercial certification and ability. Mr. Ladd does not have state of Ohio certification. That's a finding in your report. It's under findings.
Okay, I was told by several people that he didn't. It's
Did you
something
check
he-
that out at all?
No, I did not.
Why wouldn't you investigate such a horrible thing to say about a guy who's a building commissioner?
Because I put it in the report.
Because Scott told you.
No, Scott didn't.
Well, then who told you? Who would know about it? Sylvia?
Other people that work in the city, but, and it wasn't by Sylvia.
Other people that work in the city. Can you tell us who they are?
No, but.
Can you
my
tell us what
point
department
was
they work
that
in at least?
I was-
Give us a clue.
Does he have
Because right now it's
certification or doesn't?
hearsay.
I mean,
I don't
It's
know.
hearsay.
I said, I don't know if he has commercial and residential. I was told he has residential. I was told he doesn't have commercial by several people. They said it's something you gotta check into. It's one of those things we never checked into. We didn't have the time and ability.
Does he
to
have
stop.
commercial
So you made an
certification?
accusation, but you don't check into it, and then you still put it in your report.
It's not an accusation.
It
It
sure looks
is
like an
No,
accusation.
it is a.
You
it is
highlight,
a-
you made it all caps.
Mr.
He does
Deemer,
not have commercial
Mr. Ladd is right here. He can tell us whether he does or
No, I
doesn't.
am talking. and
Well,
I
you're
have-
talking, but he's right there. And stop
I'm
banging
going
it. He's right here. He's right here.
I don't need to talk to him.
Well, he's right here. He can tell you the fact.
I know, I can tell it. I'm gonna get to the facts, because I investigated them. Now, did you talk to Jerry Piasecki, our
No.
plans examiner?
No.
He's a state certified guy and everything, isn't he?
Right, he sure is.
Yeah. He says, with regards to your accusations, calls you the author, he speaks as if they have some understanding of the requirements of the State of Ohio Board of Building Standards, the Residential Code of Ohio, or the Ohio Building Code. He does not. The author goes on to say things that are wrong, and that is a serious problem. Mike Ladd, quoting Piasecki, has the full authority to issue any permits in zoning and engineering occupancy certificates, as these are all city functions established by city ordinance, and no state certifications are required for those actions. As the city's building official, Piasecki, he's required to take state certifications and have them in both residential and non-residential or commercial. The state does not regulate permits when the city maintains a certified building department, as Macedonia does. He does as a contract employee. The quote you just had on page 33, he says, this passage makes implications, and the author is clearly ignorant to the actual state requirements as outlined in Ohio Administrative Code. It is very misleading. Now, you said he's a very fine gentleman and well certified. Why didn't you look into this further and ask him questions about Mr. Ladd's certification requirements? Why didn't you do that?
I wish I had time to look into a lot more.
But yet you had time to make accusations against a fine gentleman who's been a good building official.
It's not an accusation, it was a question in the report, it clearly states, I'm not sure whether he has it or not. It is another issue for council to look at and to determine, it doesn't have to be determined.
Sir,
by
they
me.
hired you to look at it.
Sir, we
Why
did.
didn't you look at it? They hired you to do that. They aren't gonna go do this.
I
They
already
have real
did.
jobs.
I can answer
I
it.
think we've already answered that.
We have.
Well, let's move on to page 34, Mr. Piasecki.
Well, I
is
do
also-
want to know, does he have residential certifications or commercial?
We'll get into that on another day. You can
What?
have-
Do you have,
you want me to read it again?
no,
I'll read it to you again.
he's
but
not
I'll give you-
certified commercial.
Now,
No.
This is pure, where's decorum, where's courtesy?
Well,
I mean,
where
it
is
sounds
it?
Just thought I'd throw it out there.
I mean, you're laughing about something that's an embarrassment to all of us?
Uh,
All right, on page 34, you are quoted as saying, about, again, talking about Mike Ladd and the Kuchar plaza contest where he was upset about somebody getting permits for something, and he claimed he had ownership. And you quote in there, "This debate of placing signatures on permits is clearly identified and was previously debated by several people connected to the city of Macedonia. A final determination made by Jerry Piasecki stated in a letter that in all future actions it is recommended that ownership be clearly identified before the permits are signed." You state that in your report. Mr. Piasecki says, "This passage is taken entirely out of context. This is incorrect, what he says. The author, again, is ignorant to the requirements of the Ohio Building Code. There is no burden of proof placed on the building department or the city to verify the names of owners prior to issuing a certificate of plan approval. Indeed, they don't have the ability to get the shareholders of corporations and find out who actually owns it. False statements on those applications by the property owners would be something the law department would handle." Piasecki says his response to what you said, and that you took out of context, was going into depth regarding requirements of the Ohio Building Code and how the process works. However, the point of clarification here, that my response included an entire text, and he goes on and he quotes the entire text. "In consideration of the apparent concerns, I request that the ownership of the property be verified for our future dealings with this matter. In Mr. Kuchar's letter, he refers to himself as the owner. I control the majority of the stock, and it's due to my liens on the property. However, the letter is written on Plastic Process Equipment letterhead, signed it as CEO of Plastic Process Equipment. For our future dealings, is Plastic Process Equipment or Ed Kuchar the owner? This was not a universal recommendation for a process change, it was just for this matter." Now, did you ask Mr. Piasecki about those facts?
I put it in my report as something that needs to be looked at, questioned, and I thank him for the clarification. Thank you for reading it.
Yet you went and made your findings as to what Mr.
Once again, we
questions
discovered
remain.
stuff that was needed to have answers. We accumulated in the report. We hand it to council. Council determines if they want to take it any further, if they want to get any answers. It's the same process. We found factual information. We found other information that we did not know. It's questionable, and we presented it as it's questionable, and we asked and made it clear that some of this stuff is unverified. And I'm here tonight to clarify the verified from the unverified, excuse me. And it's the same thing. We're presenting this information to give council more tools to make a decision on what they want to do moving forward. And I appreciate his clarification on that because it was needed.
Well, clarification, it's totally opposite of what you stated as questions and concerns that you have in your investigation, which would not be questions or concerns had you talked to him and properly quoted what the law is and what the facts are.
Mr. Dean,
But you didn't do that for your clients.
I wish we had the opportunity to talk to a whole bunch of more people. We didn't have that opportunity with this investigation.
Give your clients up for more money, they should do that.
No, that's not the.
I also had a letter from Myra Severin, who said she never spoke with anyone from the state, whether Ms. Wertz or Sachs or my office, about any investigation. She had absolutely nothing to do with any of these investigations, yet she's concerned about why her name was being under those persons who had a role. So, I assume you were just putting everybody who
What
could
did Myra,
possibly
was Myra in the
have a
report?
role, is that right?
Her name was at the beginning.
Yes, her name's in the list, right?
Oh. I don't remember reading it.
Okay, on your front of your report, you talk about,
He asked for everybody. That's right.
well, one other thing about correcting here. You had indicated that the law director, Joe Diemert, had some involvement, or it was, you believe the law director had some involvement in the selection of Ms. Wertz along with the mayor. You said that, did you not?
Yeah, I
Did
said
you-
it was.
Did you ask anyone about that? How did you come to that belief?
People told me that
What people?
rumor, but also council told me that you were involved, the mayor, the council was involved.
Which
And-
council person told you that?
Input into that.
The police chief has said here in front of a public meeting He was involved, I never was involved. I didn't know the lady, never saw her reports, never saw resumes, had never talked to the mayor about her, know nothing about her. Now, those are the facts, and that's, the police department's verified that, the Chief Golden did it with the mayor.
If you're clarifying that, I
I'm
think.
not clarifying
I
it,
think
you put it in there as something that was inappropriate, or improper, or as you said, maybe a conflict, or maybe unethical.
You know,
You say those accusations, yet you have no basis for it.
I'm repeating what is out there.
And you won't give us who says it. How
I
can
wish,
you?
I wish I could.
You can't repeat things, you shouldn't put them in black and white.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. I have no problem with clarification.
Well, I think you should be a little more careful about what you do. You said also that the city should not be billed for $1,900 or shouldn't be paying for the mayor's garnishment issue. Of course, the issue is that Scott was reprimanded. There's emails for him putting those papers in his drawer. The law department wrote him an email. I don't guess you saw that. They wouldn't have showed you that. Shortly after the incident saying, why would you hold these papers? It's a motion against the city of Macedonia.
It's,
He didn't know better. Did he tell you that?
there's a debate whether Scott had the papers or the mayor had the
Okay,
papers.
in any event.
And we're not gonna get that
Okay.
answer here tonight.
So you did make the remark, though, that the city should not have paid my fees for that, that I
If-
should have gone to the mayor to get the money, right?
If in fact the mayor held that paperwork for 2 weeks, had it in his drawer, or whatever, and it caused the subsequent legal
So did you-
issues.
did you
And you
invest-
had to defend the city, it was,
Yes.
it is something that you potentially could go back to the mayor, since it was personally caused and not
Thank you for
caused.
admitting that it was against the city of Macedonia, and I'm obligated to defend
I
the
didn't
city
have
of
a problem
Macedonia.
with that. I
Okay,
didn't say that.
if you would have investigated a little more of the facts, you would have found out that this was in December of 2013, and it was done under retainer, where the city did pay no money at all to me, other than the normal, regular retainer. It was extra work for me, but no extra pay, so the city taxpayers paid no additional money. Now, you didn't investigate that far, did you?
That would require a meeting.
Listen,
We are moving on to the end of this.
The answer to that is, we're getting
I sent
into
her an
another
email.
can of worms.
It's not a can of worms. It's a- You indicated that the mayor should have to pay me for the fees.
he should have.
Oh,
He should have.
Okay.
He withheld the
that's your
paperwork,
conclusion.
sir.
Let me test your.
Well, let's test the
Assuming
theory. He
that.
withheld the
I
paperwork.
did
Let's-
not.
Okay,
Miss,
stop.
Miss
Why are you
Augustine can come in here and testify on
Sylvia?
who had the paperwork.
no, that's a lie.
It isn't a lie, sir.
It's
You
a
know it
lie.
isn't.
Let's all take a deep breath. Let's keep order on the floor.
Mr. Please sit down.
It's
You
an
don't have the
accusation.
floor.
It was made. It's not proved yet.
Well,
Everything in here is an
you are not
accusation.
here to do
That's all.
anything other than sit over there and prevent a
That's
fight.
not true. He is the
We don't
sergeant.
know.
He is the
He-
sergeant.
He is not the sergeant at arms in this meeting. We haven't appointed one.
To one person.
And please sit down because you have nothing to do with it.
He can stand there all he wants.
Okay,
All right. Last thing is on the front of your report, you talked about investigative report, City of Macedonia. Who gave you authority to say this was for the City of Macedonia?
I was contacted by representatives of council.
Sylvia and Rita? Did they show you any legislation authorizing this investigation?
Show me, no.
You mentioned in the report that for internal use only, confidential and proprietary. Didn't you put that on there,
Where at?
on your report? Several places to find.
If I did at some point in time, council asked if they could release the report, and if the report could go public. I said it wasn't up to me, I just do the report, the investigation report. So that goes through the process here through the council, or whatever.
So the fact that you had mentioned that the news media was anxious to obtain the report, that was really a form word you would put in there then, not something of
I'm just
substance,
looking at email.
as far as your report's concerned. Now, you had mentioned tonight, in closing here, you looked at the motivations of individuals, the credibility of individuals. Do you think with any of the facts that you didn't have an opportunity to learn because of the short budget, that the credibility of the person you were investigating, Mr. Spab, is it all in question? That he may have done something improper? Not illegal, but improper?
I think at the beginning of my statement tonight, I said, quote unquote, Mr. Scott Slab is not a perfect human being and not a perfect management person. And I pointed out he had personality conflicts with Digitano, and I openly admitted that he is not perfect. Now, once again, my report reports stuff that we are able to verify and other things that we were told that we could not verify. I have a duty to report both. That's exactly what I did in this report.
And you understand my duty was to bring out those things tonight that are factual. Does that change your mind at all as to your conclusions that he is totally innocent?
I did not discover in our discussions, I did not have, as an example, I did not have employees come forward to me, at least they didn't call me, to talk negative about Scott or discredit Scott. That doesn't mean that they're not out there, but all I'm saying is we were having to deal with those employees, past and current, that were willing to talk to us about, say, different management, different procedures, rumors, and different things. They're all in that report. We've clarified tonight a lot of the stuff that we did verify, and I've clarified and admitted there are things in there that we don't have information on. Mr. Ladd here, don't have information on it. Can pieces of our report, due to further investigation or questioning, can it be clarified? Mr. Ladd's is a perfect example. He doesn't need commercial license under the city code, as you put it, and that's fine. We now have an answer to that. That's all part of the report.
Okay, and how about the emails that were used? Would you change your mind just based on that? That one county official goes to get sentenced for a crime? You won't change your mind just on that?
No.
Okay.
No, I
can't.
can't change it just based on that.
Gotcha, okay.
It would have to be a little more in-depth.
Now, as
than that.
president and CEO of your company, you have, you said 11, 12 employees, part-time,
20.
full-time. You're the CEO, you're the boss. One of your employees does something wrong that you don't like. You're the guy who's in charge. You make the decision whether you can work with them anymore, can't you?
Yes, sir.
You understand that in this city, the mayor, under 3.03 of the charter, is in charge of all departments and all employees. You understand that?
I don't have a,
If he made a decision to charge him with the violations that I tested you on tonight, and you really didn't dispute any of them that I brought forward, you just said you didn't think they were that important. That's not important. This isn't that important. There's really no victim. So what, he lied to council? So what, he lied to the mayor? You said all that, but as the boss of the community, isn't that his decision?
I don't have a good understanding of him being the boss of the community and along with the council being the boss of the community. And I can't answer that question because I don't have a clear understanding of how the council and the mayor works.
So you're not familiar with charter government and...
Not with that, and it would be a problem.
You are though, Mr. Deemert. Why don't you tell him that we can't remove the finance director without the majority of a council concurring? And we did not concur.
Appointing authority, and he is...
He's the appointing authority. We are the confirming authority for removal.
We are legislative, not administrative.
You indicated that in your closing remarks earlier about Digitano that he should have revealed relationships with other people because it's important for somebody to come forward and reveal their relationships with others. Mr. Reichert, who was hired by Scott to come in and paint here, who had a felony record in Canal Fulton, came here to paint, was not registered. Scott made sure he got paid, and he didn't tell anybody that he was painting his own house at the same time or shortly before that. Now, isn't that a relationship that should have been revealed under your standard that you talk about?
Well, number one, he wasn't painting at the same time. I think he had used him in the past. And it's a possibility that potentially could be a requirement or could be a courtesy to respond to that.
But he didn't do that, did he?
On the Reichert painting, no.
And you didn't put it in your report?
But my report clearly says and indicates the problem is, and it's not just the painter, it's the fact that several different people, directors, people in charge, everybody, it appears in our review, is confused about everything from registering to bidding processes to some of this. And we state that quite clearly in there, that there seems not to be consistency. If you want to use the painting, you had 3 different people.
I understand, you already said all
ask
that. You
that.
said all that.
And I didn't
The
condemn
question
all
was about
3.
revealing relationships.
Well, I'm trying to be fair across
You're
the
not,
board.
you want to go back and attack others again.
No, I'm not
Let's
attacking
move on
anybody.
to the insurance
I'm actually
guy.
defending
Ooh,
them.
let's go to that
and
one.
saying all 3 of them were confused and all 3 of them shouldn't.
Nobody was confused, he's the only one who brought him in. You're the one who's being confused. Scott brought him in, no one else.
Other people requested him to do
Scott
additional
brought
work.
him in, you won't concede that, will you?
Scott did
Yes,
suggest
Scott
to use
did.
him.
Right.
Scott did suggest to use him.
Now, Scott brought in also the insurance guy who got paid for 30 vehicles that we didn't own, and he paid him premiums. Do you think that's a relationship that maybe Scott should have revealed, that this insurance man was also his personal insurance man? Do you think he should have revealed that? Talking about revealing relationships.
If he's his personal insurance, I don't see a problem with him revealing that.
Of course. Okay, so he should have revealed it, don't you think? And not to do so, isn't that improper?
Once again.
What about the mayor's personal relationship
What do
with
you
the
wanna
insurance
attack others
company?
for?
I
Let's
want
talk
to, I
about
want to
one
know,
person
no,
at a
let's ask the mayor what his personal relationship is with the insurance company. Don, do you have a personal
No, you're not
relationship?
asking questions here,
Why?
please.
Because you don't want the answer.
Yeah, you can get all the answers you want, they won't mean anything.
Don, do you have a
Yes.
personal
All right, let's
relationship?
talk about the time clock guy. Did Scott reveal his relationship about the time clock guy from Canal Fulton doing work for?
Let me clarify one thing, I need to go back. A lot of people for the city we're not revealing their previous relationships. We're not revealing and following proper bids, proper registration. My point is, if you want to reprimand Scott for that, let's just say you do want to reprimand him for it, let's say it's true, you have other managers in this city and leaders who did the same thing. And the problem I have, and it's outlined in my report, is you can't pick one person out and say, you didn't reveal your relationship with your insurance guy or your painter, but it's okay for the mayor not to reveal the relationship
missed
that
that.
DiStefano gave money to his campaign fund. So
What's wrong with that?
you gotta reveal that
Yeah, you gotta reveal that.
relationship. It's just as important as a guy painting his house, a guy giving money to him, a guy living across the street that I used to work for, and now I'm a director.
So you equate all that.
Well, I'm
You
saying.
mind turning around, look
Yeah.
at me, talk to
I'm
me.
saying, no, you've got this whole thing where you can't pick and choose who you want to enforce your regulations on. This is where the confusion is.
Okay, so
in
your
this
job
report.
though was to investigate the facts against number one, Scott Spad. So
No.
why are you going against saying, well, Scott did this, he did that, he did this, he did that, but everybody else probably did it too, so I can't give you any names, and I can't give you any facts, and I can't give you any evidence, but it's okay if Scott did it because everybody else probably did it. You think that's really a fair investigation?
We can prove some of the facts.
Without names, you can't.
Names of people reported, but facts of relationships that should have been reported by numerous leaders in this community did not happen. And that could be Scott included, but Scott's not alone in that mistake, if you want to call it a mistake or improper,
It's a
whatever you
council
want to
meeting.
call it. Huh?
It's a council meeting.
Yeah,
Talk
I
to us.
understand. No, it's an open
Mike, did
forum.
anything you need to ask more, or Mayor?
No, I mean, my question is where did it come in that GPD was never, it went out for bid? I don't know what you're talking about or what you're relating
Is
to as far as,
GPD required to do bids?
are they required to do bids for contractors on contracted?
No,
Or
are you required to have GPD along with other entities do bids, or does GPD get an exclusivity?
there is a process, and it's by the Ohio Revised Code, and how we determine who is going to be city engineer here. And it's called quality-based selection.
Okay.
Was quality-based selection given on every single project that was given out to GPD that went over either the $25,000 threshold or the $50,000? Absolutely. You want to know why? You follow a QBS selection. There's a rating system where 3 individuals in the city take sheets, rate the different proposals. It's advertised in the paper. It comes back to the city. There's a rating system by number. Nobody knows what the other person is rating. Comes together, is given to ODOT, and says, here's the final numbers, and here's a selection. ODOT needs that information before any project is given out.
And this proves my point. We need clarification on things that we have not been able to get information from anybody on, and I appreciate what you said, Mike.
The other thing I have is that it was a claim in there about Denise Mulholland that she was retaliated against because she turned me in for working in Cuyahoga Heights. Let me tell you that it was investigated by the police and the state auditors, and I was cleared of all this. Now, number one is, it was an anonymous complaint. I didn't know it was Denise Mulholland until this report came out. So how could she be retaliated against when I didn't know it was her?
Well, because other people did know who it was.
Who? Because the police couldn't even tell me. They didn't know who it was.
And they didn't share that with you, and. listen,
Nobody knew. I could tell you that I thought it was completely somebody else. I can honestly tell you, I thought for the longest time it was completely somebody else. And anybody close to me, even the law department, the mayor, think it was completely somebody else. And I'm not going to mention that person's name.
And yet it's in the report as an accusation, and you had to repeat it tonight, about something that's been dredged through the police department. I wanted to speak up on, Vince, if you want to add to that, will you verify what Mike said?
I know Mike did not know it was Denise Mulholland, I know that.
Yeah.
Well, nobody
And
really
the fact
knows
that
it's
she got an
Denise
office bigger
Mulholland.
than the one she was in.
It's,
You know, they moved her to an office 3 times bigger with the
She
way
got an
the
office 3
went up.
times bigger. Yeah.
she was,
I have a question. Do you have the state auditor's report clearing Mr. Ladd, and do you also have your police report?
I'm sure I could dig it up. I don't have it with me, no.
Okay, could you please see to it that I get a copy and the rest of the council?
Absolutely.
I believe when that report came out, I sent it to council.
Yeah, I know you guys.
But we never got a copy of it. None of us ever got a copy of the report.
You couldn't
And I
find
would like a copy
because
of that
I
report.
gave you a copy.
No,
because that
nobody
next
gave me a
meeting-
copy.
That next meeting, I remember Ken, I brought my own personal attorney
No,
here. in
you
case there
gave it
was
to
any
Mr.
questions.
Martin, but
I had my own attorney.
Mr. Martin did not give it to the rest
Can
of
you,
this council.
Mr. Ladd, just resend it out again?
Yes.
Since someone has lost her mail several times.
The
and she
state
doesn't have a
auditor's
computer that
findings
works.
and the police
Let's just
department's
take the
findings.
fact She doesn't have it.
Well,
I
here we
wasn't
are
on
focusing
council when
on
that
another
happened,
employee, Not the
so.
one in question.
well, he's the one who's talking about it.
I guess
Let's
the
move
question
on.
I
Is
would
there
have
anything
is,
else?
I want to know if there's any other questions for me. I mean, I think we hit up every question that was questionable on my account. If there's something else, I'd like to hear it.
Mr. Mollendeck,
Yes.
you stated
Mr.
Scott
who?
was the contractor that was allegedly asking you for a job to replace the city engineer.
No, that's
Did
not
you say
correct.
that? Because
No,
that's
that's
what
not
was
correct.
said in this.
No, that's not correct.
It's not
What I
correct?
stated is, I had a meeting with Matt Melendick
Yes.
on a pavement rating system.
is that part of this
That-
report?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I met with Matt Melendick about a pavement rating system.
So you're
That
saying at
Scott
no
pushed
time,
me-
at
Now,
no
hold on,
time.
let me finish.
Okay.
I met with him on a pavement rating system. I explained to him, as well as Scott, we cannot hire him. GPD is under contract. That kind of process wouldn't be over $25,000. I wouldn't be good advertising for it. I cannot just aimlessly give a contract to somebody who's friends with somebody else. I cannot do that. We met about the pavement rating system. It's a good idea, excellent program. I agree with it. We're doing it here. It was part of their contract. It's always been a part of GPD's contract. That's number one. Number two, did Scott push not only Matt Melendick, but Nick Feeney to come on and have one city engineer for the city? Yes. You could ask Nick Feeney himself. There was conversations. He didn't want a firm. He wanted one city engineer here. That is a fact.
Well, the question wasn't whether he wanted one city engineer here. It's whether he tried to force you to hire
Well,
Mr.
what do you mean
Mollendeck as the
force?
city engineer,
I never
because
said
that's
force.
what was the original.
I never said force. I never said force me.
So,
His affidavit says, Scott asked me to meet with Melinek several times, starting with an email on June 23rd, 2011, and asked me to meet with Melnick another 3 times orally. I did subsequently meet with him in July 2011 and reviewed a report Mollenbeek had prepared regarding a road, but determined that any such contract would conflict. In
Okay.
addition, there was no reason to stop using GPD as the city engineer.
So there really hasn't been anything improper about him pressuring you. He's asked you to talk to this guy.
Yes, was the hiring of an individual for the position of city engineer ever brought up to you again by the finance director, Scott? His answer under oath, yes. A few times after my meeting with him, Scott repeated that he, Mollenbeek, was a good worker and the city should consider hiring him. About 4 to 6 weeks later, payments on purchase orders for GPD and the city engineering began to be delayed by finance. The delays in the finance department paying GPD purchase orders ranged from 2 months to over 1 year and had never occurred before. As a result, we were forced to set up meetings between finance and the engineer and the mayor at least twice per year to resolve the unreasonably delayed purchase orders pending at the time of the meetings.
Right, and that is what Scott was interviewed via polygraph on, and he said that didn't happen.
And I provided all evidence
Well,
of those.
Mr. Ladd, we would like you to take a polygraph on that whole issue. Thank you.
Really, really, when I have evidence of this and has given it
Right.
to everybody,
Let's leave it there. I think we've.
did you ever
Can
look
we
at the
end
evidence
this
that I
meeting
provided?
On a fact of it, thank you for your report. However, what I'm finding is all these reports, I again go back to what I said to you once, Mr. Swab. If you just once admit you'd messed up somewhere, I would take a little more credibility into this. But again, I got a report that it's everybody else's fault. And I find that hard to believe that everybody lied and that there's a big coercion. You know, everyone's talking about how to get rid of Scott. I appreciate the work that you did. I understand you ran out of time because you sure didn't interview a lot of people that we brought up tonight. I get that, because I know time is precious when you're on the clock. So I do appreciate the work that you did do. Thank you. I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, Josephine?
Mr. Engel,
Yes.
Ms. Durham,
Yes.
Ms. Hannigan,
Yes.
Mr. Mueller,
Yes.
Mrs. Tele.
Yes.
We're adjourned.
Kim, I'm just really curious. I've never been to